on Ayin Zion Amid base 77b, about the 7-8 lines from the bottom. So the Mishnah had said, how much oil would somebody need to carry in order to be the minimum amount and transgress? So it said, Shemen kedei losach ever katan, oil enough to anoint or to smear onto a small limb. That's one way of translating that. Or there could be, that would be descriptive of the limb, aver katan, a limb small. Or it actually in Hebrew that can also mean aver katan, the limb of a child, of a small person. So which one does the Mishnah mean? And it actually could mean both. Aver katan can mean the smallest limb of a small child, meaning the smallest of limbs. So which one does it mean? So Amri Devei Rabbi Yanai, Shema kedei losach aver katan, shel katan. It actually does mean both. It means to put oil on a small joint of a finger, meaning a part of a finger of a child. Ben Yoma, of an infant born that day. So a minuscule amount of oil that can be enough to put oil onto a newborn infant's finger, that would be sufficient to count as oil. Mesa, we're going to ask a question. So essentially, the question over here is going to be based on the meaning of the word aver katan. Now, as I just said, it can mean the limb of a minor, or it can mean a limb that is small. Mesa, we ask a question. It says in the Brisa, Shema kedei losach aver katan v'katan ben yomei, to be an oil enough to anoint, or meaning to smear on a small limb, or on a minor, an infant born that day. So it's seemingly the Brisa is saying either enough oil to put on a small finger, or enough oil to put on a newborn child. Two separate things, and either one, and that would be the same. My lav aver katan the gadol, wouldn't it be the small finger of an adult? The aver gadol shel katan, or a full limb of an infant born that day, katan ben yoma. That's what the seeming meaning of the Brisa is. So the response of the Rabbi Yanai is going to be, look, that's not the meaning. It's hachi kamer. This is what the meaning is. Shemen, how much oil do you need to carry on Shabbos to transgress? Kedei losach ever katan shel katan ben yoma. It means, like they said, not either or, but it's it's explanation of the first line. What does it mean? Enough oil for a small limb of a newborn infant. Lema katanai. So let's say this is actually a machlokas tanai. Shemen kedei losach ever katan v'katan ben yoma. Divrei Rabbi Shimon Elazar. Rabbi Shimon Elazar says oil enough to smear on a small limb or a newborn infant. And Rabbi Nassan says it means a small limb. My lab, wouldn't you say what's the distinction between these two opinions between Rabbi Nassan and Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar? The Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar savar aver shel katan shel katan. He means to say, like Rav Yanai, both a limb of a small limb of a newborn child. Rabbi Nassan savar aver gadol katan, aver gadol de katan, either a small limb of an adult or a large limb, a full limb of a child. But if all you had was so little oil that you had a little bit of oil for a small limb on an infant, that would not be enough. Look, Gemara says no. We don't need to say that this is the machlokas of that brisa. Everybody understands the meaning is that it has to be one that infant child. A small limb of an infant child is not enough. Oil for the pinky of a newborn, that's not enough. Look, but later the Rabbi Yanai, and everybody will disagree with the Rabbi Yanai, and we are now at the top of 78b, 78a, Ayin Ches Amud Aleph. and that both of these opinions would not agree with Rabbi Yanai. And what's the machlokas then between Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar and Rabbi Nasa? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar savar Aver Katan the Gadol, Aver Gadol the Katan ben Yomai ki adadinin. He holds that a small limb of an adult or a large limb of a infant, those are actually going to be the same size. Rabbi Nassan Savar Eva Katan the Gadol and Eva the Gadol the Katan ben Yomai. And Rabbi Nassan says no, that a small limb of an adult, that's significant carrying of oil. But if you had enough oil for an infant, even a full, even let's say the thigh, the femur of an infant, that's too little, and that's not going to count, and that would be less. Ma'havala. What is the conclusion in the end? Tashama, the time of Shimon Elazar Emer Shemen Kedei Lasach Eva Katan Shel Katan Ben Yoma. That we have a brisa that expressly says that Reb Shimon Elazar holds that we're talking about enough oil. If you carry so little oil, just enough to smear on a small limb of a newborn infant, that would qualify enough as the requisite amount in order to carry oil. And Rabbi Nassan is going to disagree with that and say, no, it's not enough. It has to be a limb of a larger limb. And that's going to be the machlokas. So then we do have a supporting statement from one of the Tanaim to Rabbi Yanai. The Academy of Rabbi Yanai is going to follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. So we saw, the Mishnah said further, Mayim, how much water would somebody carry on Shabbos, and that would count as a requisite amount? In order to rinse, to smear the kilo. Kilo, we said, was a medicinal potion, a spice, medicinal powder that they would put on. If you have two uses of a specific item, one common use, one uncommon use. The uncommon use may be a smaller amount. Yet the Chachamim were lenient and said the common use is what you need in order to transgress. You have to take enough to be useful for the common use. And if you took enough for the uncommon use, even if it's medicinal, even if it's of value, but that's not going to be enough. So for instance, let's say you need 1 ounce medicinally for wine, and for drinking you need 3 ounces. So even though that some people may use 1 ounce, that's not going to be enough to count as, oh, you've taken something of significance and you've carried it. No, because since it's not the common use, the more common use is drinking. So we're going to go with the drinking amount. So that's a general rule. That's the Gemara says. Kol milsa de shchichi v'lo shchicha. There's some has a common use and a non-common use, and the common use is going to require a larger amount. That's the amount somebody has to carry in order to transgress. If they carried less than that, they don't bring a chatas offering. Even though that it's a leniency, we're going to go with the more common use. Shchicha v'shchicha, however, if both are common, so you had a common use that requires 1 ounce, and another common use that requires 2 ounces. Then the Chacham are going to say you're going to go with the smaller amount because it's still significant. Then we're going to go strict, and we're going to go with the smallest amount. And where do we see this? Yayin, wine, its most common use is drinking. As a medicinal use, it's not so common. So even if medicinally it's going to be less, we're going to go with the common amount, which is enough to have a revius. Chachamim went with what somebody would drink, similar to shchicha, which is common. Lakula, even though that was a leniency. Similarly, cholav, milk, it is most common for eating and is not most common drinking, right? But not most common for medicinal use, and therefore. The Lakula Chachamim said you're going to go with how much drink it is or food it is, and not what the medicinal use is, even though that the medicinal use would have been more strict. We're going with the leniency. honey, which or nectar, we said the other day, which is either its common use both in as a food as well as medicinally. So we're going to go with the leniency, with the stringency, the strictest of the two, since both are common. We're going to go with the strictest of the two, which is medicinal, just enough to put on a wound, and that's going to be sufficient. So we followed the stricter amount, which was medicinal. But what about water? But in water, mechti. Let's analyze this. Most people that drink water drink it as a drink, not as a medicinal use of smearing some potion into your eye or some powder into for something. So my time. So why in water are you telling me that it's enough for a kilo? This shouldn't be so. We should, since it's a less common use and not a common use, the more common use of water is for drinking, and so we should go with that. Oh, we're talking about the Galil. So what's so special about the Galil? So it comes up in the Gemara many times. It seems the culture and the needs of the people in the Galil were actually very different than Yehuda, which was the center of the country, and the lower part of the country. They had a different culture. Rashi says over here that they were poor and they were very particular, even on a small amount, and they wouldn't use wine or milk in order to smear in this kilor medicine. And therefore, they used wine because they couldn't afford they used water. Because they couldn't afford to use wine. Tosfos earlier in the Masechta, he says the contrary. Since the Galil has fantastic wine was cheap by them, and so they used water for that because wine was something that was something that they had in abundance. Tosfos Rabbeinu Hananel says something else. He says the water in the Galil was so good medicinally and they had plenty of water because they had runoff from the Hermon and they have nice health springs, and so they would use the water that way. In any case, in Galil, that's what they would do. They would use the water commonly for medicinal purposes, for whatever reason, like Rashi, like Tosfos, or Rabbeinu Hananel. But the point is, water was used not only for drinking, but also for medicinal purposes. And so we're going to be strict and go with the smaller amount of water that's enough to carry on Shabbos to transgress, because that's going to be a significant enough amount. Rava says, no, it's not only the Galil, it's other places as well. Like Shmuel said, masu umetalali. When it comes to an eye ailment, and this is what the kilor is used for, it says that all liquids can help bring the kilor in. You can smear the powdered medicine into the eye with wine or with honey, with nectar, but they would all cloud the eye. The only one that wouldn't cloud the eye is water. And therefore, it's the best way to use this medicine. While other things can work, wine is the most appropriate use. So therefore, water is the most appropriate use because it won't cloud the eye. And therefore, it makes sense that we measure how much is a significant enough amount of water to carry in order to transgress. Carrying on Shabbos is enough for the kilor because that's a common and important use. The Mishnah had said further, "V'shakal amashkim revius." All other liquids are with the revius. Tanar Rabbanan dam. What about blood? V'chol min amashkim. So the Brisa said, blood and all other liquids, revius with the revius. Blood is enough to put in into the eye. And we've seen this before, that they would take this blue dye and they put it in the eye, and it served as a medicinal purpose and for beauty. So enough blood for one eye. Shekain kochlin libarakas. That if somebody had this ailment called barakis, which was, it seems to be some sort of white lumps in the eye. So for that, they would use blood. And which blood? What kind of blood would they use? Blood of a wild chicken, a chicken that wasn't a home chicken, but rather out in the wild. It's a bird. Rabbi Tzvi says duchifa, a type of bird. It's a type of bird. So that bird is what we're talking about, and the blood from that bird was helped this ailment called barkis. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, "Dam kedei likho ba'ayin achas." Indeed, blood enough. It's enough if you carry blood that can go in for one eye coloring. And why? Shekain kochlan liyarud, for this ailment called yarud, which seems like it had more to do with the inner part of the eye. Omayni udama the karshtina. What blood would they take? It seems bat blood. It's not the right season to be talking about home remedies with bats and bat blood, but that's what this was. Omayni udama the karshtina. V'simonech, and what symbol can you remember? Which blood for which ailment? Gava legava, bara lebra. A protrusion is going to take blood from an external animal, from the bird that is wild. And for the inner ailment, for that the blood came, the blood from the blood that was used was the blood from the one more commonly found in the city, which is a bat. So the Brisa continues and says a cryptic line, and the Gemara is going to try and explain it. When do we say this, that it's significant when you carry this much amount, when you carry it outside? But if you actually are matzniya, meaning that you store this, you keep this thing, as much as you keep, as much blood as you store is what, if you carry, it's going to be enough. That means even if you had less than enough to put into one tube for the eye, it's since you're saving it, since you're saving the blood, it makes it significant enough that if you carried it, you're going to be chayiv. Rabbi Shimon, however, Rabbi Shimon says, and he says quite the contrary. If you actually are the one that hides it, then this amount for one eye is going to be significant. But if you don't, you're just carrying it outside, then even the amount for one eye is not going to count. You're going to have to carry a revius, approximately 3 ounces. You're going to have to carry a revius, which is the requisite amount for all liquids. So the Gemara is going to challenge us in a moment and say, wait, both of them have to be carrying it. Just because I stored something, I'm not going to be chayiv. I'm not going to have to bring a sin offering. Rather, it has to be that I stored it and I carried it. So why is it calling one carrying versus storing? The Brisa continues, but everybody would agree, the Chachamim and Reb Shimon agree, that when you carry shofchin, that means wastewater, that in a revius measure, like all other liquids, that would count as significant and chayiv. And the Gemara later is going to tell us, what do we need? What does somebody need wastewater for? Amar Mar. If you are just carrying it out there, but if you are storing it, so then even a minuscule amount, as much as you store, is going to be chayiv, a sin offering. So Gemara says, what are you talking about? Just for storing it, I'm going to have to bring a sin offering? No, of course, I have to also carry it outside. So why are you calling one carrying outside and one that I'm storing it? So what we're talking about is that a apprentice of a mentor, apprentice of a cobbler or whatever it may be, and his his mentor tells him, prepare a place for me so we can have a meal. So if he moved something and he carried it in a public domain, if it's something that everybody values, so that's a matter of significance to everyone, so then he's going to have to bring us an offering. But what happens if it's something that not everybody values? So then we're going to say like this: if it's the kind of thing that his mentor, his teacher, has stored, so then his teacher has considered it significant, and therefore he's going to be held accountable, and he's going to have to bring a sin offering for it, because this counts as a significant matter, even though it's not for him, but it counts as significant because his teacher had stored it. But if not, it would not be chayav. Now, we're talking about a student, Rashi says, on account of, because we want to tell you this chiddush that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and we saw this a couple of days ago, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is of the opinion that not only if I consider it significant and I store it, does it count as significant, and when I carry it in the public domain, it's going to be chayiv, but even if it's someone else's and that person stored it, and I would never store it, and to me it would not be significant, but since the owner considers it significant and stores it, so even though that it's a minuscule amount, but he considers it significant, and when I carry that, I've transgressed. Tosa says, no, this is a little different. This is a parentis, and it could be even according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, and because he's in a parentis, everything he does is based on the teacher as well. But either way, the concept over here that we're saying is that indeed it's something that's less than the requisite amount, but since someone who is of significance here, either the owner or the teacher, considers it valuable enough that they would store it, now that's significant. And if you carry that in a public domain, you have to bring a chatas, a sin offering, because you transgressed. But if it's less than that, or you're not, nobody stores it, so then it would have the requisite amount of either medicinally enough for one eye, or as we saw, the second opinion, it would have to be, Rav Shimon says it would have to be enough in a revius measure. Now the Gemara says, okay, so we said that the Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Shimon, and in this water that's basically wastewater, whether it's from we've seen from cleaning dishes or from hand washing or stuff like that, somebody that needs dough and is washing their hands. So there are different types of waste waters. That this also is significant enough if you carry a measure of a revius that you're transgressing carrying. Why is that of any significance? The Gemara says, to what value is it? What can you do with it? You use it as water in making cement and making paste. Oh, wait. But that's for actual cement tit. We said that it's enough to put on the opening of a oven where they would where the fanning of the flames, the blowing in would go. It's basically a little clay ball that they would put there to close it up. And I says, look, Hashem, the migbal. That's when it's already been kneaded. You've already mixed the water and the dirt, and you've made this cement. You've made this clay. So then it's true that even a small amount like that can, a small ball that you can put on and seal a hole is going to be significant. However, nobody's going to make a mixture of cement on that small amount. If you hadn't yet mixed them, because nobody's going to make a cement and make a paste just for that minuscule amount. Therefore, there you're going to need a revius of water, which is obviously going to be much bigger than this little clay ball that you're going to use to seal a hole. So if you already have the mixture, so then a small amount is of value because I can use it to seal up a hole. Whereas if I haven't made the mixture yet, and I have the liquid, the water that I would use for the cement, that requires enough that I could at least make something small out of it. I would mix a small amount, and therefore it needs a reviz. The Mishnah continues. Somebody takes a rope. If it's enough that you can use it to make a handle for a basket, that would count as carrying, because that's a matter of significance. Gemi, which Gemi was, it's not actual rubber, but it was basically a pliable weed or seaweed or reed of some sort that was used it was strong, and so they use it as handles or hanging things. So they last it in order to make a handle for a hanging hook for a colander or a sifter or sieve. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it's what they would use to take the measurement of a shoe for a child. And this is the way they would do measurements. They would measure the child based on the gemi, and they would mark it from the heel to the toe. And they would bring that to the cobbler and say, this is the size of the foot. Please make the child a shoe. And so if you had enough that you could measure a child's foot, that's significance. Niyar, paper, which was made of leaves and stuff. So what's more like a papyrus? Paper, niyar, k'dei lichtav alav kesher muhsin. Small enough, but large enough that you can use as a tax receipt. And the Gemara is going to tell us later that they would basically put two letters, essentially initials, on it, indicating that it was a paid tax. And those were larger so that you could show them to the tax collector over when you were going over a bridge or from city to city. So if there's enough that you can get your tax receipt written on that, that counts as a sizable piece of paper. Kesher, mochsin, or actual carrying that receipt from the tax collector, chayiv, that's a matter of significance, because you need to be able to show it later. The Gemara will tell us what, once you pass the tax, you paid your tax as you came in, and you paid your duties. So what difference does it make that you have this receipt? Of what value is it? And the Gemara is going to tell us. We turn the page to Ayin Chesam at base 78b. Niyar mochuk, a piece of paper that you can't really write on anymore because you had to erase so much that it's not really clean anymore to write. So that would be, you'd have to be able to use the piece of paper as a wrapper for your spice box that people would wear around their necks to give off a good scent. Or what about leather, hide? Could they last us kameya, enough to make a kameya an amulet? Cloth. What about parchment? Could they licht of parsha katana shabbat tefillin, enough to write the small parsha tefillin, a small section of the tefillin. And we know that tefillin has 4 sections. So which section is a small one? Shema Yisrael. Shema and Vahafta is the small part of tefillin, and that's what kalaf is expensive, so you wouldn't just use it for anything. So you would only use it for you wouldn't use it for a small piece for a tax collection or a receipt, or for a sealant or wrapping to your spice box. Rather, it would be used for tefillin. So it has to be enough that you can actually write tefillin on it. Dio. What about ink? It's enough to write 2 letters, and we'll see the Gemara tells us the 2 letters that we write are smaller than those of the tax collector. Kochol, this blue dye, enough that you could dye one eye. Devek, glue, enough to put on the top of the shafshaf. The Gemara is going to tell us later. Basically, it was basically a bird trap that you'd put on a piece of wood on top of a stick and hold it up high, and birds would come and land on it, and then it was a glue, and you were able to catch the birds. Zephes, tar, v'gafris, and sulfur. Kadei lasas nekev, enough to make a small hole, small enough. What is a small hole? Which would be basically they would blow into it was a silver. It was basically a whole silver, and it was made the size that you could blow in a air into to shape it. And then they would use it also. They would use wax to seal that hole. So could they last the neck of cotton? So when you had liquid silver, and it was enough that you could pour it in, and in order to shape it, and enough to seal it, and with the shava, could they leave it on neck of cotton, and with the wax, enough that you would be able to seal it. What about charsis? Charsis is basically ground up limestone or cement, brick, ground up brick. So what about that? Could they last us pikur shel tzorfei? It's enough to make a hole to blow into the furnace of gold of people that would purify gold. It's enough to make a pitput, which was like a stand under a tripod to hold the vessel up. Subin, and what about a subin, which is unfine flour? It's bran. So what would you do with that? You would seal that hole in the furnace of gold, where they would blow in, and they would put subin in there. They put this bran to seal it. Sid, which is plaster. Could they lasud katana shababanas? That's enough to plaster a young girl, the smallest of the girls. Basically, that would be done like waxing to remove hair. Rabbi Yehuda Mekdei lasses kilkel. Rabbi Nachman Mekdei lasud undafi. And the Gemara is going to tell us later it was a way that they would keep their hair straight. So the Gemara says now, what is chevel for a rope? Nami l'chayev. Why for a rope did you say it's enough to make a handle of a basket and not enough to make a hook for your colander and a sieve? Why does a rope require more? So the Gemara says, "Kiva the charik," because it's so rough. Money of the inchi. People don't put it onto a kitchen vessel, because it would scrape it off and ruin it. Tana Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan said, "Hutzin k'dei lasas oizin lasal kvifa mitzvahs." Hutzin is basically thorns, thistles. So what are we going to use here? That's enough. It has to be long enough that you can make a handle for an Egyptian woven basket. Sieve. Sieve is basically a strandy type of bark that's around a palm tree. So Rabbi Meir, who is often referred to as Acher Momrim, kedei litan al pi mishpach katan l'sana nesayai. They would put that and use it as a sifter when you were sifting wine, so a filter really, filtering wine. So they would bunch these up, and then you would pour wine through it, and it would catch the sediment. Revav, fats, whether animal fats or oil. So kadei losach tachas aspagin katana. That would be enough to smear beneath a small bread, a small roll. And in order for the bread not to stick to the wall of the oven, they would put smear a little bit of fats on there. So you'd have enough that you could put under that. That's a matter of significance. V'kama shiura, kasela. How much is that? The size of a sela, a coin. Batani kurgageres, but we learned that fats carrying the size of a fig. Indeed, those are exactly the same size. Muchin. What about shmatas, cloths? Kedei lasas kadur katana, to make a small ball, basically child's play, a ball. The kama shira, and how big would that ball be? Ke'egos, the size of a walnut. So again, all of these materials it has to be significant. The smallest value, the smallest matter of significance is what we're looking for in order to say, okay, that much counts as carrying. We said niyar for paper, it's enough to get a tax receipt. Tana, kama kesha muchsin. How much how much you need for a kesher muchsin for this tax receipt? Shtei osiyos, 2 letters. For a minute, wait 1 second. But we learned how much in niyar chalak somebody who carries an empty piece of paper. Im yesh ba kedei lichtav shtei osiyos chayev. And there we learned if it has enough to write 2 letters, he's going to need bring a sin offering. That means that's 2 letters is enough. Vim lav potter, and if not, he's going to be exempt. And that's a lesser amount than the way they write. So the Gemara says, Amar of Sheshes, my shtei osiyos shel kesher muchsin. No, you know what it means? 2 letters of the size of a tax collector. And they wrote larger in order that the next tax collector, the next tax station, he's going to be able to show it, and they'll be able to read it. Rava says it doesn't actually mean larger letters, or rather, he has to be able to hold the tax receipt, and they have to be able to see the writing. So normally, just 2 letters, it could be very small, enough to just write two letters. But for a tax receipt, you need not only the 2 letters, but you have to be able to hold the paper and not cover the writing. So, and enough to hold. The hainu kesher muchsin, that's the size of a tax receipt. Mesavesu asks a contradiction. Somebody takes an erased paper, which obviously now doesn't have as much use because it's not clear and you can't write documents on it because you can tell that it's been erased. Or if somebody carries an already paid up loan document. If on the white part, meaning on the margins, there's enough that you can write 2 letters. Or if in the entire document, in the entire piece of paper is enough, or if it has enough that you can wrap this on a jug of pliatim, which are the small spice containers that people would carry around with them. So then you chayiv, because that's enough paper of use, either as a wrapper for the pliatim, or because you can write on the margins. But without that, not. But if not, you're going to be exempt because there's no value to that paper. Now, Bishlam Rav Sheshes. So according to Rav Sheshes, we could say that the Amar Ma'ashtei Osir Shel Kesher Muchsin. He says that the size of 2 letters is talking about the size that a tax collector will write. So Shapir. So now we have a good explanation of what the meaning of this document over here that has a piece of on the margins. Ella l'Rava, but according to Rava, it says either way you're writing small letters like we write, and it's just that you have to have enough to hold. Well, you know what? In this document, you have enough to hold because the loan document is of no use. It's already been paid, and the margin you can write 2 small letters, and so that would be significant. There's enough to hold. Over here, you don't need this extra for holding it because that's the whole document. Kasha, indeed, this Bryce is a question to Rav. The Tana Rabbanan. So we learned that if you carry this tax receipt, you've transgressed. Now, what's the issue? Now, if you hadn't showed it yet to the tax collector, so this is your receipt that you're going to have to give to the collector and say, hey, look, I've paid my dues. Of course, you're chayev. Then you're carrying a paper of significance, a matter of significance, and so you transgress by carrying. But once you've showed it already, and you're past customs, you've went beyond the tax collector, you're exempt because it's of no value anymore. However, Rabbi Yehuda says no. even after you've showed the tax collector and you've peacefully went through that bridge and that connection, and now you're traveling on, nevertheless, there's a value of this paper, and therefore you're chayav for carrying it. So because you do need it. So what's the basis for that? So Abaye says the distinction between the two opinions is, are we worried that maybe a tax collector would chase him and say, hey, where's your tax receipt? You just went through there and you didn't pay the taxes. And he'll have to show it a second time and to prove himself, so he's going to hold on to it. And so that's why it's still of significance. Rava says, no, maybe there's a distinction between a larger and smaller crossing. And maybe the smaller one is not going to trust that he did it yet, or the larger one is not going to trust that he did it yet, and so he's going to have to show one and then later go through the larger tax collector and show it to him again. Rav Ashi Amar Achad Muchasik Benayu, Mipnei Shetzarach Lo Laharis L'Machasheni. Even if there's only one tax collector, but he has to show it to another tax collector to show, look, I'm an honest guy. I pay my taxes. I've paid my dues. And in order to show it, he carries this tax receipt around. See that I am recognized by the tax collector, and I pay my dues, and I'm all good, and therefore they would let him through. Okay, we'll stop with this, and tomorrow morning, Bez Hashem, tomorrow morning is today is Rosh Chodesh. Tomorrow morning, Bez Hashem, we're going to continue with a paid loan document. What value is that, and why would somebody transgress carrying that? After all, it's already been paid. Of what value is it?